Vlad the Impaler, the man that inspired Dracula. Today we're going to talk about Vlad the Impaler, the Prince of Wallachia, an alleged inspiration for Bram Stoker's Dracula. Vlad was born in Sisosora, Transylvania, in 1431. His father, Vlad II, had been granted the title and lands by the King of Hungary after serving under him during the Battle of the Karen. The Dracul title is where the Draculing name comes from. It's not a translation of Son of the Dragon as some people claim. But before we get into that, let me just say, if you are enjoying this video, please subscribe. We'd really appreciate it. Anyway, when Vlad was just 9 years old, his father went to a meeting with some nobles and allegedly sold his sons, Vlad and his brother, to these nobles as a way to pay off debts. This is according to Vlad's biographer, but there's no written record of this, so take it with a grain of salt. Vlad was supposedly given to a family in Sisosora and lived there until he was 18. It is claimed that while living there, he converted from the religion of his birth, paganism, to Christianity. Again, no records exist of any of this, but when Vlad was 18, he left Sisosora to join his father's court. In 1446, Vlad's father became Prince of Wallachia, and Vlad became his advisor. 2 years later, Vlad II died, and Vlad the Impaler became Prince of Wallachia at the age of 25. He ruled from 1448 to 1457, and again from 1461 to 1465. Despite his young age, he was already considered an experienced ruler, because he had served as regent for several years prior to becoming prince. Apparently, he had been gone from Sisosora so long that when he returned, the citizens didn't even recognize him and thought he should not be made prince because he was from there. But obviously, they got over it. During his first reign, Vlad implemented a number of progressive policies that benefited the people of Wallachia. He lowered taxes, reformed the judiciary system, and improved infrastructure. But he also did a lot of terrible things. While Stoker never met Vlad the Impaler, Stoker's research notes do contain a lot of information about Vlad, though none of it was used in the novel. And many of the claims made in the research notes come from the writings of Vlad's enemies, who were trying to discredit him. So during his first reign, Vlad went to war against the Ottoman Empire. After suffering defeat, he paid tribute to the Ottomans in order to secure peace. He then traveled to Ottoman territory to meet with the Sultan, which may have actually happened or may have been fabricated by Vlad's enemies to make him look bad. During the trip, Vlad apparently feasted with the Sultan and enjoyed himself. So when it came time to go back to Wallachia, he refused to return unless the Sultan sent back all the wine that had been served to him. The request was denied, so Vlad went ahead and invaded Ottoman territory. Anyway, attempting to steal the wine for himself, he stole quite a bit of it, too, as well as women and children to sell as slaves. The Sultan found out what had happened, declared war, and sent his army to punish Vlad. Once again, Vlad retreated and had to pay tribute to the Ottomans to ensure peace. Later in his first reign, Vlad went to war with his cousin, King Matthias Corvinus of Hungary, over disputed territories. He lost that war, too. During this time period, there were widespread revolts against royal authority across Europe, and though there is no evidence that Vlad had anything to do with these revolts, his enemies wrote that he was a secret supporter of the revolutionaries. After his second term as Prince of Wallachia ended in 1457, Vlad spent a few years trying to regain the throne. But in 1461, he finally succeeded and began his second and final term as prince. His second term was very different from his first. Though initially he continued his father's policy of friendly relations with the Ottoman Empire, he soon adopted an anti-Ottoman stance and waged war against them. He also went to war against the Kingdom of Hungary. Vlad had been trying to marry his daughter into the royal Hungarian family in order to strengthen ties between the two nations, but those plans fell through. Vlad had broken off the engagement to his daughter and was now firmly in the anti-Hungarian camp. He raided Hungarian-held territories, and when the Hungarians retaliated, he led armies against them. In one battle, he was almost captured but escaped by riding on the back of a woman. He fought alongside Ottomans against the Hungarians, but betrayed them at the last minute and stole their gold. Vlad was said to be obsessed with acquiring gold, so much so that he would bathe in gold leaf. He ordered gold coins to be melted down so he could use the gold to build castles and churches. At one point, he even put one of his wives up on a pedestal like a golden calf, and told her to stay there until she turned into gold. That didn't work. When Vlad was at war with the Kingdom of Hungary, Queen Isabella of Hungary wrote to Vlad asking him to stop harming her subjects and demanding that he release anyone he had captured. She signed the letter with the words, "May God give you a Christian end." Vlad responded with a letter of his own, which contained the following: "I believe that the end which God has ordained for me will be as glorious and as Christian as possible, especially since I am fighting for the increase of the Christian faith. Before signing it, your obedient servant." Then he drew a pentagram around the word servant, so that it could not be read without reading the whole symbol. Vlad apparently liked to antagonize Christians by drawing pentagrams on official documents. Vlad III was killed in battle on July 1476. He died fighting against the army of the Polish king and was buried in the church of the former Jesuit monastery in the city of Caesarea, which is now called the birthplace of Vlad, the Impaler Museum. There is no evidence that Vlad ever dipped his bread in blood, or dipped his spoon in blood, or dipped anything in blood. The story of Vlad the Impaler and Dracula goes back to 1818, when a British author named Horace Walpole published a horror novel titled The Castle of Otranto. It's considered the first Gothic horror novel ever written. The book contains the line, "He was as arbitrary as a lord, as cruel as a tyrant, and as mysterious as a Joachim's brother." Joachim was an Italian noble who allegedly dipped his bread in blood during communion. People assumed that the author meant Vlad the Impaler. In 1848, a Scottish folklorist named Sir George Dasent published a collection of Norwegian folk. One of the stories was titled The Story of the Vampire, which is where Bram Stoker got the idea for his novel. Dasent based the tale on stories he heard from his grandmother and others. The story is about a nobleman who travels to Norway and makes a deal with the devil. The devil tells the nobleman that once he dies, he will rise from the grave and drink the blood of his family members. The nobleman agrees, thinking he can outsmart the devil, but the devil turns out to be smarter. The nobleman does eventually realize his error in judgment and asks the devil to forgive him. Some people say the story was based on real events, including Dasent's grandmother, but there is no proof of that. Romanian historian Nicolae Iorga suggested that the story was instead based on a local legend about a prince who invited a foreign nobleman to his castle. The prince boasted that he dipped his bread in blood during communion and forced the foreign nobleman to watch him do it. In 1897, Bram Stoker published The Jewel of 7 Stars. The protagonist, a member of the British Royal Institute of Natural Sciences, is researching ancient legends of vampires in England. He learns about a plot to kill a lord and replace him with an imposter, so that the imposter can take advantage of the lord's wife. The plan works, but the lord's son suspects something is wrong and begins investigating. He discovers the truth and confronts the imposter, but the imposter kills the lord's wife. The son, however, is able to stop the imposter, who is revealed to be a priest. Now, although The Jewel of 7 Stars was published 10 years before Dracula, it was written after Stoker learned about the Romanian legend of Dracula. This is proven by a letter he wrote to his wife about the story. He says that he took the title from a Romanian legend, even though the story isn't about Dracula. Stoker's research notes contain a lot of information about Vlad the Impaler and Dracula, but none of it was used in Dracula. The research notes also contain information about the legend of the blood of Christ. This story goes back to the Middle Ages and says that after Jesus was crucified, his blood fell to the earth and made plants grow. Some people believed that drinking or bathing in the blood of Christ could cure illness and heal wounds. Stoker studied all of these legends and more, but decided to create his own story instead of basing it on someone else's. Bram Stoker wanted to write a vampire story, but didn't want to make it seem derivative. So he took bits and pieces from various stories and legends, combined them together and created an original tale.